Hi everyone. As a part of the presentation requirement on our subject accounting theory and current issues, we are here to give a presentation on the topic revaluation and impairment testing of non-current assets. First of all, I would like to introduce my group members to all of you. I would like to introduce myself as Rohan Rizal, and the other two members accompanying me are Rujina Malapati and Asmita Rasthala. And the topic of our presentation or the research is revaluation and impairment testing of non-current assets. For the topic for the research, we have chosen two articles, namely Impairment of Non-Current Assets, Implementation and Disclosure, Evidence from Industrial Firms in Jordan, written by Mohammad Omran and Hara Norfala. And the second article we have chosen is Upward Evaluation of Non-Financial Assets, written by Sharon, David, Tyson and Tom. And in the second part, I'd like to state the reasons for selecting the articles. We have gone through different articles on the source provided, but we have chosen these two articles because of the following reasons. The first reason is the article showed the treatment of asset as per two standard accounting standards. They are IFRS, which stands as International Financial Reporting Standard, and GAAP, that stands for Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. The first reason is IFRS and GAAP has a different aspect of treating the individual assets, as IFRS treat assets as individual cash generating unit, whereas GAAP treat asset as part of the asset group and reporting unit. The second difference between the IFRS and GAAP is the articles showed in different approaches of evaluating assets under IFRS and GAAP. And the third reason is both of the articles have emphasized on the impact of revaluation on both financial position and financial performance of any business organization. Now, I'd like to call my second member, Asmita, for a presentation. And thank you for listening.
Hello everyone. I'm continuing this presentation with the explanation of the purpose of the study. The first research article is by Sardon and Tyson with the purpose of finding the difference in measurement of non-financial asset by two most famous accounting standards like as GAAP and IFRS. If it states the most of the non-current assets have long economic lives. The second article is based on determining the industrial firm in Jordan disclose the implement the impairment loss on the asset, which are in conformation with the requirement of IFRS. And the second part I'm going to discuss about is similarities and difference in the finding of studies. First, the similarities. Both the studies are based on impairment of non-current assets focusing on different aspects. Now the differences. Sardon and Tyson have highlighted that there are arguments on both approaches, and it has been suggested that the FASB need to conform more closely to prevailing procedure to IFRS, whereas the study of Nawais and colleagues highlighted on the importance of implementation of asset under IAS/IFRS 2016. It also showed that most of the firm did not disclose that the impaired loss, and also it recommended the industrial firms should focus on IAS/IFRS and disclose the impairment loss. Thank you. Now the next slide will be taken over by Rujina Malapati.
everyone, I'm Regina. Now I'm going to talk briefly on the implications of the reporting that we have discussed earlier. So there are three different major topics that we highlighted regarding regarding the implementations, like accounting regulators and in Australian companies, investors, and as stakeholders are interested in financial performance and position of any organization. They are interested in depicting and knowing about the financials performance and what is happening and operating inside the organization. So the main theme of the article is to focus on how firm is running and how are the policies related to the disclosure policies, and the management policies regarding the firm are also depicted in these articles, and how they are well managed and organized, like maybe it may be on the cost or cost wise, or like less costly or expensive, and so on. So the different stakeholders are accountants in the Australian companies. The financial statements are used to depict in firm's position and performance. Sheridan and Tyson has focused on the enhancement accountant understanding on the matter, and the Mohammed Omran has enabled to move them beyond minimum requirements of disclosure and provide the information related to the impairment. And for the accounting regulators, they have determined, it helps them to determine the loopholes and issues of the statements and the policies regarding the impairment of the revaluations. Now for the investors, as any investors are willing to invest in the firm for which they provide the profit, so they these type of articles and the impairment loss and repairment revaluations regarding the non-current assets helps them to determine and hold or sell, to determine and decide to hold or sell their investments, and aware of the differences to better investment decisions. So therefore I would like to conclude my presentation, and while doing this article and concluding about the presentation, I would like to thank our professors, because it has helped us analyzing the different principles like IFRS and GAAP, and it helps to distinguish between us. Thank you.